Day 27.
On the Ohenro Pilgrimage Trail was dominated by weather. The morning was one of rain, early morning heavy rain, and then petering off as it came to afternoon. But I had all my rain gear on, bag had rain gear, preoccupied by trying to keep everything dry, making sure the books and the electronics didn't get wet. The morning was about a 10K hike up a mountain. It was a slow climb next to a highway, so it wasn't all that bad. It was gradual, but it was a gradual hike up to the mountain in the rain. In the rain, when I stopped, it was hard to motivate myself to get going again. I actually found an udon place for lunch, and that was nice, but again, it was hard to motivate to get going. The afternoon was one of wind and dropping temperature. This was the first day where by the afternoon, I was putting on more clothes. It was getting so cold. 2 days ago, it was 70, and then by the end of the day, it was in the 40s, dropping down to 30 tonight, in the 30s tonight. The wind was pretty brutal at times, sometimes blowing me back, hard to move forward. I visited a Bangai in the morning that I wish I had visited yesterday afternoon. Though I was exhausted yesterday afternoon, it was just... I tried to film it in the morning, and it was raining, and I was trying to keep my camera dry. The camera has a fan on the top of it, so I'm always worried about rain falling into that hole. So it was difficult to keep the camera dry and try to film everything at the Bangai. And I wish I'd just gone yesterday and gotten that out of the way. I then visited 3 other temples that were quite nice. The last one was really quite beautiful, and I wish I had more time to have had explored it. Part of the day was a miscalculation. I thought I was going to be done by 3. I wasn't done till 5:30. I sort of miscalculated how long it would take to get places, and the weather definitely did slow me down a bit. At one point I was using GPS, and it said I wouldn't get to the last temple until like 5:15. But then I got on the Ohenro path, and it actually cut some shortcuts, and it cut about 5 kilometers out of the way. I also miscalculated, looked at a map, and I saw the hotel, and I'm like, okay, that's near the temple. And it is near the temple. 5 kilometers from the temple. And that doesn't seem like much, but that's an hour-long hike. So I got through at the temple at about 4:35, 4:40 or so, and then had another hour walk until I got to my hotel. Some adventures or misadventures for the day. I was at the bathroom at one of the temples, and it had a low ceiling that I didn't realize I had ducked to come into, and on the way out, pretty much knocked myself out. I banged my head and then was on my ass on the floor and trying to shake off what just happened. I think my hat padded the impact a little bit, but it was still a pretty big ding. Any tall person who's lived in Japan for a while knows what it's like to bang their head on the cross beams of doors. I discovered a new type of tunnel. There are various levels of scary tunnel. Today I discovered spooky-ass tunnel. I was up on the hill. There was a tunnel. There weren't many cars on this road, so I had the tunnel to myself. It was a long tunnel, incredibly windy, with the wind coming at my face, so I had to try to get through the tunnel as wind was just howling through. Half the lights were out, and they were out in sort of sections, so you'd periodically come upon a section that would be pitch black. And from somewhere there were crows cawing. So walking through a tunnel with wind screaming at you, crows cawing, and sections becoming pitch black, definitely spooky. Definitely the just keep walking, 1 foot ahead of the other to get through. Variety of tunnels on the Ohenro Pilgrimage Trail that you can check out, from different levels of scary to also including some spooky ones. At one temple, came across a couple of bus tours. They were just leaving, but first 40-person bus group that I had seen. There's a 40-person and 20-person bus group. They were heading out as I was heading up to the mountain, so I think things starting to pick up. I have a few more gaps before I start to hit major temples one after another, in which I imagine I'll run into a lot more bus tours. Just to comment on, so I've seen different videos and snippets about how polite Japanese are when driving. And they might in the city, but in the countryside, when you try to cross a crosswalk, no one stops. And the the sidewalk that is along the highway, sometimes it's on one side of the road, sometimes it's on the other side, so you have to keep crossing over. And sometimes there's a crosswalk to cross over, and sometimes there isn't. But there are many times, it's easy to cross over, there's not much traffic, but there have been a few times where I'm literally waiting at the crosswalk and trying to enter, and no one will stop. They just keep on going by. Whereas in America, generally when you enter the crosswalk, people do tend to stop, I think much more so than in Japan, at least in the countryside. In the city, people are much better at letting people cross the street, but in the countryside, there's so few people, they just drive on through. I'm hoping tomorrow is kind of a light day, but we'll see. I keep miscalculating things, and each day is a great adventure. Today was tough mainly just because of the weather. Rain and then wind, and it never got sunny, so it was always kind of cloudy and gloomy, and that kind of affects your mood. I'm looking forward to a beautiful spring day with blossoms out that will just put a little bit more bounce in my step, and hopefully those are coming up.